Time for another Tony's Tidbits. And as you know, I recently bought a 3D printer, and I bought an Ender 3 V2. And this video is just a few recommendations that I have for upgrades. Now, be warned, this video is a long one, so please use the chapter segments to skip through to what interests you. So here we go. First of all, if you're considering getting into 3D printing, you may know that getting your bed leveled is one of the most important tasks. My first experience using paper, feeling the nozzle, and adjusting the wheels, this took quite a bit of time, and you have to get this right, especially before printing. I later learned that there's an upgrade for automatic bed leveling. This has greatly helped simplify this process, and the only time I need to level the bed is when something changes, such as changing the nozzle, or if you happen to hit the alignment wheels of the bed. If you haven't bought or set up your Ender 3 V2, I'd recommend getting this and installing it while you're setting up the printer. That way you can have easy access to the main board and route the cables nicely. The set that I bought comes with silicone standoffs, which I highly recommend instead of using the original springs or other springs, as the compression of the silicone standoffs allows less movement of the bed, which means less tramming or leveling. Now, using automatic bed leveling doesn't necessarily get you out of tramming, but it just allows you to do it infrequently. So here's a video of the printer doing the bed leveling. So here I've started a print, and you can see this is the bed leveling. This is actually called the CR Touch, and what it's doing is it's taking samples of 9 different spots on the actual bed so that it can create sort of a mesh of where in measurements of all the points of the actual bed, and therefore it can easily then store this information so that it prints, it can compensate for any unlevel areas. And there it is. So 9 spots. I'm just gonna come here and then park right there and get ready for the print. The second upgrade is replacing the stock glass bed with a magnetic bed. When I had a glass bed, I often had to use a scraper to lift the models off the bed. It was a pain, and sometimes if you weren't careful enough, you could jam the scraper into your fingers and, well, cause some pain and perhaps tears. If you are getting into 3D printer, there will be pain, frustration, and tears. So you could maybe just get used to it and just hope that there's no blood or no blood is shed. Well, installing a magnetic bed helps alleviate the need for a scraper. You basically lay a magnetic sheet that adheres to the actual bed, and then there's a thin magnetic removable bed plate that is bendable that goes on top. Once your print is complete, you can simply lift off the removable plate off the bed, bend it, and the models just pop right off. Here's a video of how that works. Here is the magnetic bed. So this part here is actually the part that actually can be removed. So you can lift this up, you see, and at the bottom is a magnetic sheet that is basically has an adhesive that sticks onto your bed. And here, all I have to do is bend this sheet and the models come off pretty easily. So you don't have to scrape, you don't have to do anything. It's already off, very easy to manipulate and get your models instead of having to scrape it off the bed. Better yet, if you want to skip the blue painter's tape that I put on the bed, get a PEI sheet. This you can print on top of the actual sheet and easily pull off models without the need for any glue or without the need of any blue painter sheet. Here's a short video on what that's like. Instead of the flexible bed, you can actually just get this PEI sheet or upgrade to it, and you can just remove your models by lifting off of the bed. How cool is that? Okay, so let's get into some of the tools that I recommend, and every one of these will have a link in the description below. First, a great set of tweezers is what you need, and I use this to pick off the filament as it extrudes off the hot end all the time. Now this particular one has 3 different ones. It has a very sharp, pointy tweezer. It has one that's curved. So you have a curved one, so it really helps there. And then the one that's my favorite is this one, which has, it's not as sharp, it's kind of like a rounded, tapered tweezer. This is my favorite, I use this the most. And so again, I have the link below, and this is from the iFixit one. Second, you may need to print something with a brim, or in some cases have to cut your model. Having a good cutting mat helps keep your desk free of those cuts. Now, here's the cutting mat that I have, and it is double-sided, so it has a black and also a green side, and it has measurements as well. So definitely really good. It's self-healing, so when you cut, it'll heal and it'll keep its form and keep its shape. So I definitely recommend that. The third one is called a deburring tool. And sometimes models have jagged edges, and you may want to smooth them out. And I was watching a YouTube video that mentioned about a deburring tool, and I was very curious. So this allows you to slice away a tiny slice of that edge of the model, right? And it has a sharp edge, so just be careful there. But you see that it can rotate very freely. It's pretty easy to. But it takes much less time than sanding the model if you're just trying to get that nice, less sharp edge. Now this particular one has a cap that goes on. So you have this edge here. And it also comes with a 10-pack of deburring blades. So definitely a good buy there. Fourth is painter's tape, but not any other, or not any painter's tape that you can find at your local hardware store. This one has a greater width that you can actually use. You can use the 2-inch tape and get like 5 strips of it down on your bed. But if you're like me and you want the bottom of your print to be sort of smooth and not have a gap, because getting the painter's tape, you have to align it, and as your bed heats up, there's going to be separation between the strips of tape. So this gives you this wider tape gives you a smoother look without those lines. So if you don't get that edge to edge tape laid down, your models can have that gap. And so I have this particular tape, and it not only allows for better bed adhesion, but it can prolong the adhesion by, you can prolong it by adding some glue. So over time, the texture in this particular top of this tape will kind of get worn out, right? So you can actually use a light layer of glue stick, let it dry, and then you can print on top of it. And then at some point you're going to have to replace it, so definitely just take those out. This is a 6-inch roll, and I usually just have it placed in the top half and then place another sheet on the bottom half. And most of the time I'm printing the models in the middle of the sheet, so I don't have any of that gap between the tape where the seam is. So definitely a good one if you're not using a PEI sheet or haven't upgraded to that. Blue painter's tape definitely is a good option to use. Now, I'm starting to design some of my new models, or my own models, and I'm using I did a YouTube course on Fusion 360, which allowed me to understand how to use that application. But to simplify things, I've used recently Tinkercad, which I think provides everything that I need to design the models that I want. Now, as my journey gets more complicated models, or I want to increase the level of knowledge I have on designing models, I may go back to Fusion 360 or FreeCAD. But the tool that helps me design those things is this digital caliper. Now, this digital caliper did not cost a lot of money. Now, there are expensive ones out there, but I don't need that level of accuracy. What I really need is just to measure, the distances or between pretty much 2 points, right? That's what a ruler or a digital caliper does. So it really has helped me get the dimensions I need in order to design my model. So this doesn't cost too much. Good for starting out. As you need better accuracy, definitely look into a more expensive model. And I always thought these tools were expensive, but it's actually not. The sixth tool that I have is that you're gonna need to change your nozzle at some point. And I'm gonna link to a pack of nozzles that actually comes with a wrench, and that perfectly fits the nozzle. So I printed this. This goes on the right hand edge of the printer, and this particular model goes right into the actual frame. And as you can see here, it has locations for everything. And I'll put a link to this. It's a link from Thingiverse, and it holds everything that really comes with the printer itself. That you have has a location for your nozzles. Actually, this is for your nozzle cleaner, so it has a location for that. It has a location for your extra nozzles, which I bought separately, which came with this wrench. This wrench is great because not only you have the leverage on this angled part to unscrew it, but then you can flip it and then just turn it so that the nozzle comes down right there. Because as you're changing nozzles, you really want that nozzle to be heated up. So this tool alone helps you change your nozzle. But then this particular print has a place for the hex screws or hex wrenches, and then also a spot for your wrenches. So this is, I would highly recommend, if you have an Ender 3 V2, to print this one out, and it'll help you can use that tray that's right next to it for other things other than holding these things. So that's the sixth thing. The seventh tool that I have is a quality scraper. Now, if you do not have the PEI sheet or the flexible bed, when I had the glass bed, you need a quality scraper to get your models off of it. Now, I don't use this as much because I do have a PEI sheet now, but it does come in handy when I need to remove some of the more stubborn models. And I got this one for Amazon. It's an Amazon branded, Amazon Basics one. Now, the actual Ender has a scraper as well, but it's kind of a small one, and this I found gets right under that model very easily, and it has a little bit of heft and weight to it. So, and it's angled, so you can see it's angled. So this will help kind of allow you to get under that model and give you that leverage to pull it up. So definitely would recommend that if you haven't upgraded to the magnetic sheet. The eighth one and the final tool is mainly for convenience, and I'll post a link to it. I don't have it in my hand because it's actually a Google Assistant enabled smart plug, and this allows me to remotely turn off the 3D printer. So when my print is done, or I have a schedule of when the print will be done, I can set a timer for the 3D printer to turn off. And that way I can be rest assured that the printer is off when the print is complete. So I've often set this timer to the duration. Now, make sure that you leave some room in your duration when you actually set your timer, because it's not 100% accurate. So give you some wiggle room, but then when the print is finished, the timer will go off and turn off the printer. Now this particular power strip has multiple plugs, and each plug you can actually they're independently controlled, so you can turn them on and off. So I have one outlet for the printer, one outlet for the camera, and another outlet for the light. So I can independently control those things, turn them on and off as I need. So definitely a great buy for me to be able to remotely turn it off and not have to worry as it's printing or when it's finished printing. Okay, so I have a couple more. This is a splurge, and so when I'm getting to the end of the filament roll, and I'm always guessing how many grams do I have left in that filament do I have, and do I have enough to actually print the model that I want to print. If you already have a scale, then make sure that you weigh the spool before using it initially. So the spool comes with always 1 kilogram or 1,000 grams of filament. So if you weigh the actual spool once you get it, you can always, the spool it's 100, or I'm sorry, I keep saying 100. It's 1,000 grams plus the spool. So then you can get the weight of the spool. And then all you have to do is, when you're weighing it, you can just subtract the weight of the spool and get how many grams of filament you have left. So what I have is a splurge. It's called a digital spool rack, and this is actually by Creality. And it's definitely a splurge, but it allows me to have a scale built right onto the filament rack. And so as I'm loading it, I can check how much filament I have. Now, this actual rack is better than the model that comes with the printer because it has a built-in bearings. So it has smoother feeding of the filament into the extruder. And as you know, as long as if you have a lot of resistance for your extruder, you can wear out the gear of the extruder. So definitely nice to have the bearings, nice to have the weight, definitely a splurge. Here's a video of what that looks like. Here is the actual spool that has the weight, and if I push the Creality here, it's going to tear to 0, and all I have to do is put on the spool. You can see here 335 grams. Now this particular type of spool is about 131 grams of grams, so that you can just take the difference and I can get how many grams of spool of filament that is left on the spool. So pretty neat. Oh, and one last thing. Z-axis binding is a real thing. It's a very common problem that you may encounter. And I tried to do many things to overcome the Z-axis binding. What I found was an Oldham coupler, and this will help you get that under control for a better print for taller models. Here's some pictures of the coupler, and the picture of the tower test that you'll see the left side is before installing the coupler and the right side is after. And I think it's a huge difference. So here's a couple pictures to show you what that looks like. Well, there you have it. My recommended upgrades and tools that I've learned from the past 4 months of printing. Now, the printer's kind of been going non-stop at this time, and I've printed really and designed a few cool models, so this hobby is excellent. I'll have all the links in the description, and please, if this has helped you in any way, give me a like, and if you want to get future videos, please hit that subscribe and notification bell. Again, this is Tony with Tony's Tidbits. Until next time.